Hi, I'm Darnell at Wave on Recipes, and this is my 30-day review of the Ninja Foodi XL 2-basket air fryer. Now, if you haven't already seen it, there is an earlier initial review. In that initial review, I do test cook, I do, test cooks, I do measurements, I do talk about all the features, talk about how to use the features, do all types of stuff, all types of checks and all types of whatnot in that initial review. In the 30-day review, there is a follow-up where I talk to you about my impressions, my thoughts, my feelings about the cooker. If you're someone who wants to see cooks and all that good stuff, there are other cooks already on the channel, and there is the initial review for you. And if you have not seen the initial review, you definitely should. So with that said, I do want to say that generally speaking, this air fryer, it's a great air fryer, and with that, there are some things that you need to know because of it being a 2-basket air fryer that I will be getting into here in this more detailed discussion. Now, overall, this cooker can cook things evenly on both sides if you allow for decent airflow. If you've got like food stacked on top of one another, you're not going to have decent airflow, and then you have to move things around to get even cooking on all sides of your food. But if you're just putting food in flat and it's got airflow around it, you may not even need to do much flipping unless you have a concern about having a great deal of the same level of crisp on both sides. But it's going to cook on both sides pretty decent even without flipping if there's some decent airflow. It just depends on if you really want things really to be like exactly equal on both sides, then you can play around with that. But if you're not too picky about all of that and you just want things cooked decent on both sides, you probably don't have to flip. And something that I was alerted to that I do want to mention is that depending on where you get this cooker, and this is the same with some other cookers, you want to check the features that the store that is selling this product have in the model that they're selling. Some sellers have this cooker missing some functions, and some sell it with all the functions. All the functions I went over in the initial review, so you can check that out for what those functions are. But you do want to be careful when buying this. If you see a good deal, it might be a good deal because something's missing. And so that's something to be aware of if it's a feature or a function that you would definitely like to have. Now, when speaking about this in relation to the former version of this cooker, which is a 8-quart cooker, this is the 10-quart XL. This one cooks on par with the 8-quart. Both of them, I was able to use basically the exact same cooking times and temperatures that I would use for the 8-quart here in the 10-quart, and things would cook the same. I thought that this being a little larger, it might need a little more time to be able to fill the space with the same amount of heat, but that wasn't the case. I found that whatever I was cooking and everything I've been cooking, same times, same settings, work exactly the same between the 10-quart and the 8-quart from my experience. So if you're familiar with this cooker and you want to move up to the 10-quart from the 8-quart, you should be able to use your same cooking times, the same basically nuances that you are used to with the 8-quart. I found are the same here in the 10-quart. And speaking of nuances and things that you need to be aware of, this cooker being dual basket, when you're cooking with both baskets at once, things don't cook as fast, especially if it's a long cook. If you're cooking something that takes like 10 minutes, you probably, if you got two things that both take 10 minutes, then they'll probably cook in 10 minutes, both in each basket in 10 minutes. But if you have something that needs an hour and two things in each basket that need an hour, you might need 2 hours. And I mean that sincerely. And there's an earlier 2-chicken cook here on the channel, and you can see how that went. It took a long time, and in the initial review I did 1 chicken, and I did it beside some hot wings that didn't need as long. So the chicken, in the side where the chicken was, it was basically cooking by itself most of that time. the hot wings that were frozen didn't kick in until much later, and so most of that time the cooker was able to devote all the heat to one side and then just later split it. But when you've got a long cook and you need equal power on both sides, it really doesn't distribute it as well as with just one basket. And so it's going to just take a lot longer if it's a long cook and you're using both baskets. But short cook you probably can get away with. Now when you're cooking with just one basket, things get super hot. It's a super hot cooker. Cooking just one side, just one basket, it does a super great job when doing just one basket. But as I mentioned, since things can take longer when doing two baskets, you don't want that to fool you. You don't want the swift work with one side to fool you when you're doing two baskets at the same time, because as the cook is longer, it's going to take a whole lot longer. And that was something that was a issue with the 8-quart. It's an issue as well with the 10-quart. I don't know why they wouldn't like throw some more power at it. I don't know if that's maybe just a safety issue. You know, I'm not a air fryer engineer, so I can't tell you why they wouldn't just, you know, throw more power at it and be able to make this just work better when it's doing two baskets at the same time. But this is their second go at it, and the same issue exists, so it is what it is there. Now I know some of you like to try and do toast in almost any cooker that there is. There's something you need to be aware of with this cooker. Things that are lightweight, like with any basket air fryer, are going to get sucked up into the heating element. So if you try and get, especially that lightweight store-bought bread stuff, and you put it in here, and you try and make your toast, it's going to fly up into the heating element. Sure, it'll toast it, but one side's going to get a little more toasted than the other side, because one side's going to be right up on that heating element, because the fan will suck it right up in there. And so, you know, this isn't made to be a toaster. Can it make your toast? Sure, it can make your toast. You can just, you know, throw it in there and try and air fry it for however long you think is decent, and, you know, trial and error, see what you get. But, you know, one side's going to be a little more done than the other, as I mentioned. If you have some heavier weight bread or something to weigh down the bread with, then sure, things will probably work out a bit better for you. Basically my almond flour whole wheat bread, which I have a video of here on this channel, that type of bread is denser. Even like if you have a homemade bread that's just a heavier, dense bread, it's going to stay down. It's not going to be able to get as sucked up as easily into the heating elements. I know especially with my almond flour whole wheat bread, it doesn't get sucked up into the heating elements. I can use this to toast my almond flour whole wheat bread. They put on like maybe 5 minutes on air fryer on 400. Comes out decent, nice toasted bread. And so, you know, it's a one side is coming down heat type of air fryer. So, you know, it's not a toaster. So it's not going to heat both sides perfectly as evenly. And that's just the design of the cooker. It's a basket air fryer. That's what they do. So for you who want toast, if you're really picky about your toast, get a toaster. Get a toaster oven. But this is an air fryer. And so what you're doing when you try and use it for toast is you're trying to jerry-rig, which you can do, but you might not get the same results. Now the user interface is pretty easy to figure out, pretty easy to use. I do demonstrate fully in the initial review how to use the user interface. And so being able to manipulate both sides is not hard to do. And I'm glad that Ninja made it a pretty easy to use user interface for a two-sided cooker, because there's not, you know, a lot of two-sided cookers out there. So making an easy to use interface for something that's different from others is really nice to have. I also want to point out that as far as smoke with this cooker, I didn't have any smoke issues. I didn't really try to, you know, use the wrong oil or something to intentionally create smoke, which you should not do. But just for regular cooks and such, and all the cooks that I've used it for, I never had any smoke issues. Even when I was cooking the 2 chickens that took way long time, and you could see in that earlier video, never really a smoke issue there. So it manages smoke pretty decent, and that was the same with the 8-quart. This cooker doesn't really have a smoke issue in my opinion. One thing it would be nice to have if Ninja ever throws it in a future model is an integrated meat probe. I see that they're basically putting integrated meat probes in practically all of their cookers. And so if they come out with a 2-basket air fryer with an integrated meat probe on both sides, that would be pretty interesting stuff. Now I want to talk about my experience with each of the cooking functions. Using air fry was great. It's a great basket air fryer. Can keep up with any decent basket air fryer out there. Maybe even a little better than some other basket air fryers out there, but it does a great job in my opinion on air fry. As far as baking, it does a good job baking. It is a basket air fryer doing baking, but it still does decent bake work if you want to use it as a baker. For roast, it does well. I will again, because every time I think about something that cooks long, I have to think about this and mention it. If you're doing roast on both sides and it's a long roast, you're going to need a lot more time than usual for that roast. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's something you're going to have to feel out based on how things go over time using the cooker. Air broil is great. Air broil is basically what I call a barn burner for this cooker. You can only really use air broil on one side at a time, but it really pumps a lot of heat out really well, and so air broil works really good. The reheat function works great. I don't use a microwave, and so reheat, I was able to use this to reheat practically anything that I wanted to reheat using its reheat function. It does a good job with that. It is reheating with the heat coming down from the top, so you do need to be aware of the fact that it's going to reheat things on the top side a little more maybe. But if you have good airflow, then things will reheat pretty evenly overall. Unless you're reheating something that's in a container, then of course the stuff that's in the bottom of the container is not going to reheat as evenly as the stuff on the top of the container. But if it's just like a chicken part or something that you put in there, not in any type of container, that like chicken leg or something is going to probably cook fairly even overall. Now with dehydrate, I didn't use dehydrate because with this being small, I really just didn't want to use it for any dehydration. I do want to point out that changing the temperature on the fly or time on the fly works pretty well. And so it's pretty easy to change the setting on a side and keep a cook going. It works out pretty decent. The noise level for this cooker is average for a basket air fryer. I mean, basket air fryers are not quiet cookers. They have some noise to them. And so this is on par with basically any average basket air fryer. If you're new to basket air fryers, then, you know, be prepared for a little sound. Now, I do want to mention that this cooker is easy to clean, and so I was able to basically wash everything by hand. I didn't use dishwasher for everything, but I talk about how you can clean it in more detail in the initial review. But I do just want to show you inside the cooker, like inside the and both baskets are the same. Both of them are pretty clean inside. This is just washing by hand. I'd like to mention, I don't have any special techniques for cleaning things, and I really don't care to, because I just use soap and water, and if it doesn't get it with that, then so be it. And I've never had a problem. I don't get all worked up about stains on things that stay stuck on if something happens like that with a particular cooker. But as you can see, there's nothing sticking in there. You know, it's very non-stick, and so that's very nice. Now I want to show you inside in these upper heating elements. You can see after a month of use, there's nothing, no dirt or anything ever stuck to them. I never even, when cleaning this thing, tried to wipe up in here. Like, never tried to wipe up in here when cleaning. If anything gets stuck on these, it's going to burn off anyway. But you can see it's not like an issue of when you cook things, a lot of splatter. I know a lot of people get worked up thinking, oh, You know, I use this thing, things are gonna splatter into the heating elements. No, things usually don't splatter into the heating elements. If you have something lightweight, it will get sucked up into them. But other than that, you're not going to have, when you're cooking stuff, splatter issues just flying up into your heating elements like that typically. And if you do, then that's something you'll have to try and work with, but it's not an issue that I've run into. Now, as far as comparisons, this versus the 8-quart, I'd definitely say bigger is better. I don't see a reason why to get the 8-quart now that they have a 10-quart. So the 10-quart is better. The 10-quart is bigger. You can hold more. And so you can hold 2 5.5-pound chickens on each side and cook them up. It'll take forever, but you can do it. So 10-quart is just better, and you know, if you want to use an 8-quart, you don't need 10, that's fine, but between the two, 10 wins just because it's bigger and it functions equally as well. So 10 is better, and versus single basket air fryers, 2 baskets are better than 1. Even though with long cooks, 2 baskets is going to take a long time, it's good to have 2 baskets instead of 1 basket. And for short cooks, it works out really great. And if you got multiple people reheating things at the same time or cooking things at the same time, it's a real nice thing to have 2 baskets. Now, I'm not going to go into trying to compare this to air fryer ovens and pressure cookers and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do any apples versus oranges comparisons of this because it wasn't designed to be something else. And basically, it's up to you to decide. I appreciate a lot of people do want to know my opinions on things. I've put out plenty of reviews sharing my thoughts on things, but I'm going to leave it to you to decide for yourselves. You can look through basically my catalog of work. You can see what you like, figure out what you like for yourself, and make your own determinations. This channel now has nearly 700 videos. So if you haven't already seen a lot of the other work here on this channel, if this is your first or second video on this channel, there's nearly 700 other videos you haven't seen yet. You can just kind of pick ones that interest you. Pick cookers that interest you. You can look through the playlist. There are literally over 100 playlists. You can find playlists of cookers that interest you and see how they would basically work out for you based on what you see in the videos, and kind of decide what you like or dislike. But it's ultimately your money, and so you don't want me to get you what I like, because you might not like what I like. You'll like what you like, and so it's best that you decide. And so that's why I am going to leave it right there. And so I do want to point out that nothing in this video is sponsored. There are lots of ways to help the channel in the video description, such as my cookbook and other ways to help the channel. So that's always appreciated. I do buy these cookers with my own money. I have never taken a sponsorship from any of them. So I do my own thing, and I have my own voice. So that's how that works. Now, if you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, share the video with a friend, leave your comments, subscribe, hit that notification icon, and good eating.